Tonight, Barry Allen continues on his eternal quest to reveal his secret identity to as many people as humanly possible. Bloodlines remind us that in the world of gods and monsters, the biggest threat comes in the form of spoiled 5-year-old brats. And it's the end of the New 52 as we know it, and personally, I feel fine. All that and more tonight on the Not So New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 244 of the Not So New 52. I am your host, and it's not just episode 244. No. For anyone who gives a damn about this weird-ass numbering system I got going on up top, it is the 52nd month of this show. Again, not actually. I have I have changed so much of how a counting system can possibly be represented, specifically just to try to line up that number of 52nd month with the 52nd issues coming out. Regardless, it's the last month. That's what all that was meant to say. Yes, we are in the final month of this show. Not technically counting the epilogue episodes where I'm going to be doing a whole bunch of catch up and a bunch of stuff that didn't get finished before DC Universe Rebirth number 1 happened. So this is, I keep on saying it. For numerous milestones, for anyone who's been listening for a while, you'll know I've been saying this forever, but truly, honestly, this is the end game. We're here. This is, I am literally finishing up series right now in this episode that have been going on since the beginning of this show. That is happening. It may not mean anything to you, but it does to me, because I got put away some of these goddamn books. Anyway, let's take a look at what we got this week. So, in roughly alphabetical order, we have Batman Superman, Batman Beyond, Bloodlines, Detective Comics, The Flash, Green Arrow, Green Lantern, Midnighter, and New Suicide Squad. Out of those, the important ones to note are, of course, Batman Superman, which is technically the last issue. I'll get back to that in a second. Detective Comics, Green Arrow, and Green Lantern, and Midnighter, all of those are final issues. And then, what was the one? Flash. Flash is issue number 51. I don't know how this one got off base, but 52 is coming at the end of the month, so just know that that's also happening. Anyway, Batman Superman. Big thing about that one to note. It is the next part of Final Days of Superman, which is a thing, an event. Definitely check that out. However, technically, it is the last issue of the series that was released. However, in the trade that I have for that book, which I think I might have down here. Yeah, this one here. They actually had issues 33, 34, and an annual, which I guess were made under the assumption that this book was not going to be canceled coming around to the end of the thing, or that this book wasn't going to have to tie into Final Days of Superman. I don't know. Regardless, they're in the trade, so I will be covering those at the very, very, very tail end of the show as a whole. So what does that mean for you, the viewer, right now? Nothing. I'm just vamping in order to stretch this opening bit out just a little bit longer, because it's a short episode. It's only 9 comics, so I think we've made our point. And books. Batman Superman number 32, written by Peter Tomasi, art by Doug Mahnke. So, last issue, we got the whole reveal of Superman to Wonder Woman, saying that he's dying. There was a battle that went on between them and the Solar Superman, and then he just whipped right out of Argus. So, this issue picks up where they've called in Batman, they've got the Trinity together, and they're saying, yeah, he just disappeared out of Argus, the fake Superman, we don't know where he went to, but Batman's managing to track his energy signature, and they are moving into Chinese airspace, and that's just explicitly said here. There's a good little friendly moment where Batman's like, hey, if it makes you happy that you get this, then I'm happy. And there was like, I'm sorry, hold on, Batman's happy? And he's like, don't push it. So they're having a good moment here. As they go into the Chinese airspace, Batman's like, you guys need to get in the plane because the plane has complete stealth, like it can't be picked up on anything, so we'll be fine. And as they get in, they cross over the airspace. Immediately they are brought down by some sort of force field, something like that. And Superman says he can hear a vocal distortion, but either way, takes him out of the air. They crash land. Of course they're fine. They're the Trinity. But when they land, they come across the Great 10. I don't know how to explain the Great 10. Suffice to say, it's the Chinese quote-unquote Justice League and consists of a bunch of heroes that you've never heard of. However, one of them is August General in Iron, who was in Justice League International at the beginning of the New 52, and I'm like 95% sure he died, but he's here again. So either way, they're just like, hey, get out of China. And they're like, no, we're looking for something. And they're like, you know, it's the rest of this book, they're very diplomatic. It's weird how upfront and just like rawr they are at this point, but we gotta have the superhero fight. So the Trinity starts fighting against the Great 10, and it's just a long fight scene. There really isn't much to say about it. Suffice to say that they do seem to be relatively equally matched, despite the fact that it's 7 against 3. Yes, they're called the Great 10. I don't know where the other 3 are. They don't mention them. However, there's one member named Yeti, who is a giant Yeti. And in the middle of the fight, we see that he's wearing this pendant around his neck, and Batman uses a batarang to cut it off. So then when August General steps up, he's like, yes, Yeti, let us join in the fight. And then Yeti just starts beating the ever-loving piss out of August General. And Superman is like, oh, okay, it seems like that medallion might have been important to, like, not having this guy go insane. So Superman picks it up, shoves it back on the Yeti's chest and says, here it is, hold it in place. And August General recognizes, like, oh, Superman, you just saved our asses. Okay, I guess you're cool then. Thank you for that. Like, we can all stand down and we can talk about this like normal people. And then Superman explains, yeah, something that was stealing my identity flew off. It came into your guys' airspace. It murdered innocent people. And August General's like, okay, where'd you trace it to? So they go to somewhere in the Shaanxi province, and as soon as they arrive, we come across Dr. Omen, who is working on whatever, and she's like, the Great 10 and the Justice League are there, and she's like, well, I'm not super pleased over the fact that these American imperialists are now looking at my state secrets. Like, that's a problem there. And, like, everyone just immediately calls her out, just like, look, you've been doing stuff you shouldn't be doing. That much is obvious. You copied Superman's powers. It's a whole thing. And she's like, I've never done anything like that. And Superman's like, I can sense his energy. It's, like, right behind that door. Do you mind if I... And then August General's like, yeah, go ahead. And as soon as they go behind the door, there's a man inside of a test tube. He's got a Superman symbol, but it's an octagon instead of, like, the diamond-shaped. And she's like, okay, I may have made a Superman, but... it is never has left this building. You can check my files. That's absolutely not true. And even Superman's like, yeah, this guy doesn't look anything like the guy who was in the Daily Planet. That's entirely separate. But then they basically ask, what are you even doing here? Like, if you're not setting it free, what's going on? And she's like, okay, there's this other possibly member of the Great 10 named Wu Mei-ching, the mother of champions. And her whole thing is that she can give birth to 10 super soldiers, give or take, every 3 days, but they super fast age. Like, they are absolutely peak of fit of perfection, but they only live for a week. And what she's done is she's taken Superman's powers, which allows this super aging to stall, and now we have this super soldier with Superman powers that can live theoretically a normal lifetime. And she's like, yep, and it will allow China to take a step forward and all that great stuff, and check it out. And she pushes the big red button, it blasts out of its tank and immediately flies off. So as it's going away, Superman's like, come on, let's go after him. And the Great 10's like, he's still in Chinese airspace. This is a Chinese matter. If he leaves, we will let you know, and you can handle it from there. But as long as he's in China, we'll be handling this. We will escort you to the border. And Superman's like, nah, you don't got to do that. We'll leave. And he's like, you promise? He's like, yeah, we promise. He's like, then that's all I need. We're good. We're all fine. Things are a little tense country-wise, but we're fine. So then we cut over to Metropolis. Lois is sitting just doing whatever, having a coffee, and she looks out her window, and there's the fake Superman, the solar Superman, and her narration is like, oh, Jesus Christ, how did he get out of Argus? All right, just play along, do whatever he's got to do. I don't want him to get messed up again. And she steps out onto her patio, to which he says, hey, Lois, I'm hoping we could talk. Mirroring the same thing that happened earlier on. So, yeah. Look, I'm of two minds. Here's the thing. I think this issue plays a bit fast and loose. It introduces the Great 10, and last time we had the Chinese... Oh, by the way, apparently the Chinese Zodiac monster things were robots, despite the fact that one of them clearly bled as it had its hand cut off, but okay, I guess they were robots. But no, we get introduced to the Great 10 here, and that's fine. It's okay, but it is a deep cut, and I don't feel like the book did anything to explain. Like, it took a while before I think the book even clarified, like, oh, yes, we're in China, by the way. Like, it specifically said, oh, we're approaching the border. They never said where they were flying into. So, I don't know. I feel like something was lost a little bit there. However, the reason I'm of split mind is that I know what this is all leading to. I know what this book goes into when it comes to Rebirth. And I really like that book. So it's a bit of a, like, I can't just wipe that from my memory. I see this as the lead up to that. And that's where I'm a little bit torn here. So looking at just this issue, I feel like it's probably in the 7s. Knowing where we get to, it's all good setup for like the next thing. So I'd probably would say 8s. I'll even it out at a 7.5. I think it's still good. But this particular issue is probably just a bit fast and loose for most people who signed on with the new 52, if that makes sense. So, yeah, 7.5. Detective Comics number 52, written by Peter Tomasi, art by Fernando Pasarin. This is the final issue of the series, but also the back half of the arc that we set up last time, where Gordon, back when he was in the military, did something out in the desert. He found a ninja murder cult, and that felt really, really dense. This one is a fight scene and an epilogue. That's all we really got. So, yeah, we left off on the cliffhanger last issue of them finding the murder room back in the past in the flashback. This just basically picks up and says they were immediately attacked. They fought back as best they could. They did some things they weren't happy with, but ultimately they got out alive. And Julia, who he's on the phone with, is like, how did you cope with it? And he's like, we buried it. That's how we did. That's the military. That's just what you do. What do you mean therapy? So he was buried underneath a sandstorm that blew through. We see that a couple of the military buddies come in, and I'll be honest with you, they all got names last time. I couldn't tell you a single one in this issue. They barely name anybody. So as they're all standing around like, okay, so what do we do? Like, was your plan just to go in and face them alone? He's like, nah, not exactly. And then the tube containing the bat robot, the bunny suit, comes down, and he immediately loads up in it, and he's like, yep, all right, guys. I want you to know I'm Batman. That's how this is. I'm also the police commissioner, but we can talk about all that later. Right now, keep your eyes open. We're moving in. So they find the same places they were before, the thing with the ninja murder cult. It's all still there, but as they go in, they see that there's not really as many people in there. It's a bit more hollowed out, but as they make their way deeper, they come across some of their other squad mates, some people who were taken hostage. They come and they're like, hey, it's me, it's Gordon, we're going to get you out of here, it's all good. However, there's also dead bodies of some of their other squad mates, and Gordon specifically makes the point of saying, we're all getting out of here, like every Marine is going home. He doesn't mean their bodies, he means their dog tags, so he goes around collecting those. But as he makes his way further down into the tomb, whatever you want to call this, they are saying, you hear voices saying 4 Amun set, and then all of a sudden they're jumped. A whole bunch of the murder ninjas pop out, and it's just a long fight scene. We see that they make their way into the main hall where I guess Amun's set is, and the whole thing of this, which I can't remember if this was explained last issue, is that he's taking skin from his enemies, quote unquote, in order to wrap himself in it like a mummy. And once he's fully wrapped up in it, he will get the powers of some god or something like that. It just seems to be super strength. But regardless, he comes in, he's still being wrapped up. He tells all his followers, hey, give me time. I'm almost there. Like, just fight off the intruders. No one gets through to me. And we see the Marines are fighting their way through. They're doing the best they can. But as they make their way back there, we see that Gordon just doesn't make it in time. He's just barely a little bit too late. And as he gets up there, the guy's able to go toe-to-toe with the rookie suit. He's throwing punches. Gordon's feeling it on the inside. He's like, oh my God, this guy is so strong. How is he this strong? And Amonset lifts him up over his head, throws him down in the skulls, because of course there's just a pile of skulls. And he's like, oh, I'm going to strip away your metal case and then take your skin as well, and you will go into your death in knowing that you will be a part of me. So Gordon gets up, he fires off some batarangs into the guy. They all lodge him inside of his like skin, and doesn't seem to stop him. He's like, what, you expected that to do something? He's like, nope, I expected it to be a distraction. And then he launches a flamethrower over at some chemicals. There's a big tube of body parts, and he fires it off and says they're highly combustible. So of course the whole thing goes up in flame immediately. He's like, no, my skin stealing stuff, I needed that. So Gordon starts running out as fast as he can as this whole thing's about to explode. The guy's trying to put out the flames, but he gets caught in the explosion. And as Gordon makes his way to the staircase, wouldn't you know it, this guy is still alive. He grabs Gordon's ankle and he's like, you're not getting out of here, your soul belongs to me. To which all the Marine buddies up at the top of the stairway say, nah, now that your flesh has melted away, you're vulnerable again. So they shoot him to death in a truly graphic full-page spread. So once they get back up to the top, Gordon thanks his buddies for saving him. They look around like, okay, so what do we do about all of that? And they say, oh, I don't see anything but sand, and it's all buried now, so whatever. And they hand Gordon back his helmet and do the Spider-Man 2, we won't tell nobody what we saw, mister. And as they get out, it's like, all right, well, you heading back to Gotham? Are you going to get a little bit quieter? And he's like, no, I got some pit stops I need to make. And we see he makes a stop over to one of the Marines that he grabbed the dog tags for his house, delivers it to his wife. The wife cries on his shoulder a little bit, and he's like, I got like 2 more of these to make. And it's a tough job, but not everything had to stay buried in the desert. The end. It's a fine story. It's good. It feels oddly paced. Like I said, that first issue, issue 51, is very dense, very rushed. It feels like it's trying to get the whole mystery out all at once, and to be fair, it does, because in this issue, it's just a fight scene. That's all it is. It's not bad by any means. I think collectively, if you're reading it like just all the way through, it probably flows pretty nicely. I still think it might be a bit too fast-paced in the beginning of like having to make sure you get everything, but by the time it's done, it's like, okay, no, it was a nice little story of just Gordon going back to his Marine roots and doing whatever he had to do there. By the way, I keep saying Marines. I feel like they clarified that, but I can't be sure. Yeah, no, it's fine. I guess I'd say 7. It's somewhere in that range, maybe a 7.5. The fight scene itself is good. It's got a good sense of like pacing to it, but it also is just like a bunch of characters shouting like ideologies back at each other, and like the Marines just keep yelling "oorah," and it's like, yeah, all right, I get it. They're a team. Good job. So yeah, I'd say just a flat 7. It's not the strongest to go out on, but I do think that Gordon deserved to have some of his own Bat stories, and this is a perfectly fine one to end off the run on. Green Lantern number 52, written by Robert Venditti, art by Billy Tan. So, final issue. Last issue we had the gray agents showing up, and they're trying to get to Hal Jordan, and they kidnapped Virgo and what's his name. And then Hal came in, and this issue picks up right there, saying, hey, who the hell are you guys? And we're like, oh, we're the gray agents. We represent the law, and you're under arrest because you're known as a renegade. You're this evil guy all throughout the galaxy. And Hal points out how Virgo and the other guy are like strapped down to like Guantanamo Bay, like, slabs with their heads restrained. Is like, yeah, you guys don't really seem like the good guys either here. And then as Virgo tries to warn him, he gets mind whammied by that weird gecko looking thing. So Hal calls out, is like, look, I get it. You think I'm the bad guy. We can all step away from this because you don't know the full story. You let my guys go. We'll call this a mistake and we'll move on. But Gray Agent's not having anything of it. So they start launching an attack plan. Hal's not expecting their phasing suits as they just seemingly disappear. And then all of a sudden, their attack plan kicks in. 2-pounder hits him from the back. Dakwa shoots him and does what he can. Hal throws up a bubble using the gauntlet. And then Speechmaker, who's the gecko guy, steps up and manages to mind whammy Hal. And he's like, oh, okay, I guess that's the fight. To which then we get the last one, Dome, labeled as the genius. He's like, wait a minute, hold on, I didn't even get a part of the fight. Is it already over? So they start looking through his memories. They see his family back on Earth. They see Carol Ferris, Star Sapphire, and they're like, that's very interesting. We could use that. But then Hal uses his overwhelming willpower to break free of Speechmaker's grasp, and a 2-pounder comes back in ready to fight. Hal manages to throw a Green Lantern Batarang, I guess, to free... God, I'm never going to remember his name. The one who's not Virgo. And that allows Virgo to be freed as well. And then as 2-pounder comes in, he tries to punch Hal. Hal meets him with his own fist. And then makes a thing about, hey, you ever shake a beer and then pop the top? This is what popping the top is. And we see he uses Krona's gauntlet to release a huge amount of energy, which then it doesn't destroy 2-pounder's hand, but it definitely messes it up. However, doing that causes Hal to start going green again. His whole hand starts turning into just pure willpower. As the main guy, I'm never going to remember his name, of the Gray Agents, starts firing on Hal. Hal just transforms more and more into willpower, and they can't do anything. They're unable to stop him. We see Dome tries to hop in. Hal just backhands him, ends up cracking the little air bubble around his head, and he starts freaking out because he's like, oh god, I'm losing my air. So Speechmaker puts his hand over it, and then Hal's just standing there tanking hits. Virgo comes in with a kick on the main guy who's firing off shots on him. And as Virgo comes over to Hal, he's like, hey, you're Hal Jordan. You still in there, buddy? And he's like, oh, yeah, I'm Hal Jordan. And he turns back to normal. He's like, what just happened? Is everything good? And they're like, what just happened with you, man? You turned completely green. That was weird. But then the shooter guy, Dakwa, comes up, sneaks up on Virgo, gets a gun to his head. And the main Gray Agent is just like, all right, we've got a hostage. We want you to come quietly. Let's just make this a thing, all right? We're just going to do this. And Hal's just like, okay, hold on. What the hell are the Gray Agents? I never got a clear answer on that. And he's like, oh, well, the Green Lanterns are gone. They've disappeared from the universe, which means that the universe is ripe for the taking for a new central law. We were just going to become that. We were going to step in, and we were going to become the new legal authority. And then everyone would have to do what we'd say, and then we would rule the universe. And he's the other guy, again, never going to remember his name, is like, that's about what I would expect from people who want to be the law. So the guy calls out saying, look, you're the most wanted being in the universe, Jordan. After everything that happened with the Green Lanterns, you were absolutely going to be the one who is going to allow us to make a name for ourselves. And Virgo's like, dude, just don't listen to him. Just go, Hal. I'm fine. Don't worry about it. And Hal's like, hey, Rank, that's his name, Rank, I'm going to let you in on a secret. All that stuff about me being a renegade and breaking out the Green Lantern Corps and stealing their stuff, it's all bullshit. I made it all up. None of it happened. It was just to make the Green Lanterns be cool again. But yeah, then they disappeared. So whoopsies on my side. To which Rank is like, okay, doesn't have to be true. Just people have to believe it, and they'll give us power because of that. So whatever. And Hal's like, all right, here's the deal. I don't like what you're trying to do here, but I also don't trust myself to deal with this in a calm way. So Trapper, that's his name, the other guy who's not Virgo, he says, Trapper, I'm giving you a light construct gun. Shoot that guy. And he's just like, wait a minute, hold on, no. If Hal is claiming to still be a good Green Lantern, there's no way he would tell someone else to shoot us. That wouldn't happen. And Hal's like, nah, see, Virgo and Trapper are linked together by that wristband thing. If anything happens to Virgo, Trapper dies, which means that if he shoots the guy that's taking Virgo hostage, it's self-defense, and that's legal. So yeah, shoot him, Trapper. And Trapper just does. He shoots the guy in the neck. Virgo manages to get free. Ranks is like, oh my god, what? No. But apparently he cares a lot about his little second-in-command guy here. And as Daka starts bleeding out, he's like, oh, none of you are going to get out of here alive. And Trapper's like, I think I can make that true for you. You want to go another round? And Hal's like, da-da-da. Look, his wound doesn't have to be fatal. You can get him medical attention if you leave here now and stop bothering us, okay? Get out of here. And Rank is like, we'll meet again, Hal Jordan. And he phases out along with the rest of his team, and their ship takes off. And Virgo's like, was all that true? Are you actually not a renegade? Are you actually like just a cop still, but you're just like undercover? And he's just like, kinda, but like all the other cops are gone, so what do you want me to say about it? And Trapper's like, oh, that's hilarious. That's great. And then Hal's like, all right, well, we're in issue 52. Book's done, so I've got some stuff I need to figure out. Trapper and Virgo, you guys you're free to go. Trapper, here, I'm taking off the bracelet. Like, you guys can bail. Don't worry about it. And they're like, dude, we're your friends. And Trapper's like, oh, okay, well, hold on, maybe not. And Hal's like, no, I get it. But like, I got other stuff I need to deal with. I don't know why I'm turning into willpower, but like, if the universe is gonna need Green Lanterns, if that's something that I need to step up and fill the role of again, then by God, I will do it. And I'm not gonna let people take advantage of this power vacuum. So he starts transitioning over into full willpower again. And as he flies up, and as he looks down at them, he's like, well, I have a new mission. Let's see where that takes me. And that's the issue. That's where we leave off. He's fully willpower, and it seems like he's going to be the only Green Lantern. I can say with certainty that does not even last a single issue. That is immediately fixed by the rebirth issue of Hal Jordan's Green Lantern Corps. But, you know, whatever. So you got to make a couple of promises just to see whether or not people will stick around. Yeah, it's a fine issue. Again, it's one of those things where when you start an arc this late in the game, it's hard to make it feel like it's something big, you know, like it's really going to matter. I appreciate the fact that they kept this power fluctuation of the willpower thing. That's more interesting than anything about the gray agents or anything. But yeah, if anything, this arc just felt like a way of how do we move the pieces back? How do we make Hal not be a renegade anymore and get him back into Green Lantern mode? And the answer is we introduce a group that's saying, hey, they are going to try to take the role of Green Lantern away. And fair, fine. But I also look over at the Sinestro book, which is being published at the same time, and they're literally taking the place of the Green Lanterns. The Yellow Lantern Corps is literally the peacekeeping force in the universe right now. And it just feels too separate. It feels too diverted. So, do I want to say 7? I do. But honestly, I'm feeling more of a 6.5 on this one. I don't know. Something about it where issue 50 felt like it was building up to something decent, building up to something that actually had some stakes. And then after that, it just, poof, gone. Now we're back to this. So, yeah, a little disappointing, but ultimately, you need an issue that's just going to put the pieces back. Fair enough. I can accept that. But it's getting a 6.5. Green Arrow number 52, written by Benjamin Percy, art by Szymon Kudranski. So, last issue, we were going after Dr. Miracle, a guy whose blood can cure anything, and then Deathstroke showed up, stabbed Ollie in the chest, and seemingly left him for dead. What I failed to mention last issue, which I don't think was super obvious, but they did clearly show it in the issue, is that the knife that the Warlord used to scratch Dr. Miracle's skin and get his blood was the same knife that Deathstroke used to stab Oliver at the end of the issue. So it's coated in his super blood. So this issue picks up with Oliver down on the ground. Emiko is pulling the knife out as a bunch of vultures are circling overhead. And he's like, yeah, my blood type is AB. It's the most greedy type, AB positive. Like, it's indicative of who I was as a person, but maybe blood doesn't have to be that. It's set in stone. And we see that his blood starts changing from being infected with the leukos to being normal. And his wound on his chest heals up. And as he comes back to, Emiko's like, oh my God, Oliver, you're back. And he stands up and he's all good. He's back to normal. He's not like, Batman styled, aged down, all of everything about him is feeling spry and young and hip or whatever. He's like, nah, I just took a knife to the chest and it hurts like hell, but like, I'm alive at the very least. So we see Emiko points out Deathstroke's chopper and is just like, hey, we can still catch up to him. Like, we just got to go now. We got to do what we can. And inside the chopper, we see Dr. Miracle's trying to reason with Deathstroke. Like, hey, I could cure thousands, if not millions of people. Why are you doing this? Like, what about for the good of the world? And Deathstroke's like, if you're trying to appeal to my heart, think of it as the size of a tiny, purse-sized muscle. It ain't nothing. So we then see Oliver and them looking around, trying to figure out how they're supposed to catch up, what they can do. And George the dog whimpers and whines at an old, beaten-down biplane-looking thing. And it goes like, we can't get on that. It will absolutely kill us. There's no way. And Oliver says, no, look, we got to go get Dr. Miracle. He could fix Seattle. He could fix the Lukos problem. Like, that's probably our best-case scenario here. And Emiko's like, all right, let's get going. So then we cut over to Seattle, and we see that there's the Warg internment camp. And we've got the, I can never remember what they're called, but the ones that are fighting for America, and they're all racists and whatever like that. The alt-right people. And just like, oh yeah, we put the dogs in the kennel, but like, they're still going to be a problem until we put them to sleep. That's what needs to happen. And we see buses rolling up full of more people infected with Lukos. This group is throwing eggs at the bus. There's a woman inside who's unsettled by all this. And then the Berserkers rolled up with what's his name leading the cause. Genuinely, I am not sure I can remember his name at all. But no, he rolls up and he's like, all right, guys, we're going to bust down the walls. They want to treat us like dogs. We'll act like the wolves that we are. So all of a sudden, we've got the wargs inside the camp are fighting against the guards. We've got the people outside the camp that were protesting are fighting against the wargs, which then caused the wargs to fight against them. It's a whole thing. But we come back over to Deathstroke, who has arrived at the Paragon Mansion, the guy who hired Deathstroke to grab Dr. Miracle. And Deathstroke's like, hey, I got your guy. And remember, we made that deal that if I got him here in a week, you'd pay me $5 million. And if not, I wouldn't take anything. And he's like, yeah, okay, cool. And Paragon forwards over the money, but it's only $2 million. To which Deathstroke is then holding a gun to Dr. Miracle's head like, I got your guy, man. He's here. And correctly, Paragon points out, you are 6 hours overdue. You didn't get him here in a week. You're lucky I'm even giving you the $2 million after our deal. And he basically calls off Deathstroke. And Deathstroke's just like, we got caught up in a typhoon off the coast. Come on, you got to give me some slack here. And he's like, no, we had our deal. If you have any honor in your job, in your occupation, if your word is your bond, then you would leave without trouble here. And Deathstroke's like, fair enough, can't argue with the rules. So he just walks off, leaving Dr. Miracle. Miracle tries to make one more plea to the assistant, Dana, just like, the effects will wear off within like time. It'll cycle out of your system. I can't have you cheat death forever. And he's like, well, we're going to see how long we can stretch you for. So as Deathstroke walks outside, he hears Ollie pulling back the bow, catches the arrow out of midair, and he's like, oh, that's weird. Usually when I kill someone, they stay dead. And Green Arrow's like, sorry to disappoint. Where's the doctor? He shouldn't be used this way. We need to let him out. And Deathstroke's like, shut up. I've completed my job. And the guy gypped me out of some money. So like, yeah, take it. Go in there. Save Dr. Miracle. I literally couldn't care less. So Deathstroke just steps aside, lets them bust in. And as they do, they see that he's getting all held up in the ceiling by a bunch of tubing and wires and stuff like that. Oliver and Emiko use their arrows to cut through the tubing. The guy starts freaking out, telling his assistant to kill them. They, through the palms of her hands and her ankles, pin her to the wall, which is brutal as hell. And then as they go up to Paragon, George is holding him down in the bed, making sure he can't get up. So they get Dr. Miracle, and Miracle's like, hey, thanks for saving me, but I've got a feeling that you also want to use my blood for something. And Oliver's like, yeah, but like, I'm not going to force you to do it. I'm just going to state my case and really, really, really hope that you'll do it. So he outstretches a hand. We don't get to see where that goes, but we cut back to the fight with the wards and the people. It's brutal. There's claws, there's teeth, there's chainsaws, and the whole thing's going nuts. We see the main guys from both sides, the one who lost his arm trying to cut off the infection, and then I don't know, Big Al, whatever his name is. They're about to go head-to-head when all of a sudden a cluster bomb of arrows goes off right between them, and we see Oliver and Emiko and everyone are intervening. Oliver gets over the megaphone, says, hey, everyone shut up. I don't expect you to stop fighting because you're all so hateful and evil all the goddamn time, but I have a guy who can cure you. So anyone who wants to leave, leave. Anyone who wants to cure, stay, get the cure. We're done with this. And we see Dr. Miracle comes up and he puts his hands on the young woman who's on the bus, heals up all of her gunshot wounds that she had, and then cures her of the work stuff. And we see Big Al, again, whatever his name is, steps up, and he's the guy who was pinned down, who lost an arm. He's got a bunch of Green arrows in him. He's like, oh, they're saying there's a cure. I find that hard to swallow. And it looks like he straight up murders this guy, which, fair enough. So Big Al hops on his motorcycle, tells the rest of the guys, hey, let's get out of here, let's go. And a few of the guys stay behind. They're like, no, we're gonna check out this cure. Like, we're done now. So Oliver just lets him go, and Emiko's like, why do I get the feeling you like him being out there? You like the idea of werewolf you, the vigilante going out there, having that cruel sense of justice. Why do I get the feeling you kind of miss that? And Oliver's like, yeah, what are you gonna do? And the Warner Brothers logo, not actually, but you get the gist. Yeah, that's the final issue. Yeah. The only thing I don't like about it, and this is something that I didn't think was going to be as big of an issue as it was, is that I liked the warring triangle of the Green Arrow family, the wargs, and the racists. I liked that triangle so much that I didn't realize how much I disliked the whole Deathstroke and old guy who wanted blood thing. Like, that just felt like we were wasting time. That just felt like it was a totally different side plot. And the fact that it got all wrapped up was just for the sole purpose of, let's get Dr. Miracle in here. So I guess my one complaint is, I would have liked to wait for Dr. Miracle to get involved without us having to do that other little tangential thing, you know? But I mean, beyond that, it's fine. It's an okay issue. As for a wrap-up, Benjamin Percy does continue his run into Rebirth, so it's not even like the end of a story. It's just the end of the New 52 portion. So I'm not that heartbroken that it didn't feel like a really solid ending. All in all, yeah, I'll say a 7.5. It was still good. I had fun with it. So yeah, it's not the end of Green Arrow's story, but it is the end of this particular series. So long live the Oliver Queen. The Flash number 51, written by Van Jensen, art by Gus Vasquez and Joe Eisma. So, last issue we got the reveal. Riddler, for whatever reason, is behind everything. He's the one, and he's managed to get rid of / just kind of lower down the threats of the rogues while also trapping the Flash. And Flash is like, Riddler, what the hell are you doing here? Like, whose side are you even on in all this? And why are you, like, coming after me? And Riddler's like, I served myself. Don't worry about it. And the rogues are like, how did you take down the drones? He's like, I made them. I own them. They contracted to get it from me. I have shell corporations and all that stuff. Now, this is my city now. If you stay and you die, that's how this is going to work. And they all freak out for a moment because they realize Golden Glider is nowhere to be seen, and they ask Trickster, like, hey, what's up, man? What did you just do? And he's like, look, I just scattered her astral form. Her body is fine. But Riddler's like, yes, but life support is very expensive, so skedaddle, get out of here. So they leave and saying they got to go deal with Lisa. But Flash is standing there. He's like, Riddler, look, I'm sure you did your research, but like, if you did, you would have realized that I can take out all these gun drones before you even have a chance to fire a single bullet. And he does so. He completely dismantles them, and he starts charging after Barry. And then Riddler gives a riddle, and he's just like, yes, how do I defeat the fastest man alive? Someone faster than a speeding bullet. And then I thought of a riddle. Fast you travel, but I travel faster, blah, blah. It's light. It's the speed of light, to which point he uses that to pivot into a live stream of a bunch of different drone cameras that are all targeted at random people across the city. And we do see one of them is his father, and another one is Iris and Wally West. So he's like, yep, I've got all these drones trained at them. They all have guns in them. If you hurt me, I will fire all of them, and you might be able to stop a few, but you can't stop all of them. If you go after the drones, same deal will happen. You do not have a win here. And we see Trickster's looking like a little bit angsty off to the side. He doesn't do anything, but I say that from the sole purpose of it might come up. But he's like, yeah, if you do anything, then that's it. And Flash is like, all right, then what am I supposed to do? Riddler puts on some brass knuckles and is like, just stand there and take it. And he punches him in the face over and over again. And he's like, yeah, I couldn't resist the challenge. Some people try to outspeed you. Sometimes people try to have more strength than you. But I beat you with my mind, my intellect. And he just lays the smackdown on Barry. A bunch of people start coming up off the street, and they're like, dude, this guy's beating up the Flash, and he's just a regular guy. Let's beat the crap out of him. Barry's like, no, everyone hold back. Don't do that, because he can hurt people. It's not a thing. And while Barry's talking down the crowd, Trickster goes over and is like, hey, man, I thought you said we'd be making a lot of money. How does beating up the Flash make us a lot of money? To which Riddler's like, oh, we're going to take over the city. Like, first step one in that is get rid of the Flash. So, we'll be right up on it. However, while they're distracted, Pied Piper comes up on his motorcycle and says, hey, Flash, I'm back in the game. Hop on the motorcycle. And he starts peeling off. Riddler sends some drones after him because he's like, didn't want this to be too easy. So they start trying to run away from it. The drones are like blowing up cars left and right. Pied Piper takes some alleyways and manages to ramp off of a car that Riddler also blows up. Flash is looking on the whole time like, geez, man, this is a mess. So they make their way hidden down into a sewer hole, whatever you want to call it. And Flash chastises Pied Piper like, hey, a lot of innocent people could have gotten hurt. And he's like, yeah, you're welcome, man. You had no way to get out of that. So as they realize that the drones are all over the city and he can't use his speed, they're going to need a lot more firepower. And that's where we see a whole bunch of rats start coming out, which I don't know a lot about Pied Piper, but I have to assume that's part of his power set. So as Riddler realizes that Flash has escaped, in comes Captain Fry and the rest of the cops, and Riddler's like, I just gave the speech. Look, here's the Cliff Notes version. I have a bunch of drones. They're aimed at innocent people. If you do anything, I'm going to pull the trigger. And Captain Fry's like, fair enough. We are listening to you. We'll do what the Riddler says. So we then cut over to the Rogues, who just very quickly, they're over at Lisa. Captain Cole gives a thing of like, Trickster betrayed us. What are we supposed to do? And then Mirror Master and Weather Wizard are like, dude, you abandoned us to go to the Justice League. Heatwave is dead. Like, you act like you're the leader of this team, but you suck. You're literally the worst. Lisa was the heart of the team, and without her, there are no Rogues. Get out of here. So then we go over to the newsroom where Iris works at the Citizen, and the Perry White stand and is like, I got a jail that's still burning from the other day. I've got police drones that have fired shots on innocent people. And I've got the Flash is still on the outs. What's going on with him? And Iris comes up being like, I got the Flash thing. I'll update you as I hear anything else. Don't worry about it. And he turns over to Wally, and Wally's like, hey, the Flash is in trouble. We got to do something to save him. Like, I don't know what we can do, though. And then in walks Henry Allen, the dad, and he's like, "Hey, Iris, wanted to talk to you about your story. I want to have a word." And she's like, "Oh, you mean the story about you getting kidnapped out of jail? Sorry if it was a bit harsh." He's like, "No, I don't care about that. You have it in with Barry. You know my son. Have you heard from him recently?" And she's like, "Oh, I can give him a call." And he's like, "I tried that. He's not answering, and I'm a little bit worried, with everything going on." And Wally's like, "Oh, he works for the man. He's with the cops, and they're hunting the Flash, so they suck." And Henry's like, "Okay, so you like the Flash, huh?" And he's like, "I mean, I used to not like him. I used to think he was a dick, but no, he's cool now. He's a hero, and the cops are all just trying to hunt him down. It's good guys do good things, and bad guys do bad things. That's all that matters." And then we see the drones make an announcement over the city, basically saying, "Hello, I'm the Riddler. I am taking over your city. I have drones claimed on all of you. The Flash can do nothing to stop me. However, I want to be able to get rid of the Flash, so if he does not comply with my demands, I'm going to shoot a lot of people, and they will all die, and there's nothing they could do." So basically it just says, like, if you want to know whether or not the Flash is a hero or a menace, you'll get your answer today. And as we go back to the hideout, Riddler is talking to Prankster, and Prankster's like, "Hey, all right, look, whether or not the Flash gives up, assuming he does, can you free Heatwave? Like, he's still in the tube here. Can you just, like, let him out? Because, like, he seems to be in pain." And Riddler's like, "Just in case, it's always good to have another card to play. And my other card is firebombing the whole city. So no, we're going to wait to see what Flash says first." And Heatwave's like, "God damn you." So Riddler comes out and he's like, "Hey, have you passed the orders along to the department, Captain Fry?" And Captain Fry is just like, yeah, grumble. So the Riddler's timer is almost up, saying, "All right, he's got to be here, or else so many people in the city are going to die. I'm sure he's going to do it." But the timer ticks over, and it doesn't seem like he's going to answer. And then all of a sudden, at the door is the Flash, and he's like, "Hey, Riddler, I'm here." And he pulls back his cowl in front of Captain Fry as well, and says, "My name is Barry Allen. I'm the Flash. I surrender." So that's that. Yeah, it's got some guest artists on there, and I say guest artists in that, like, they haven't been on previous issues. It's fine art-wise. It blends in. I didn't notice a major change until we got to Barry's face reveal, which looks significantly different than anything I've seen before. But beyond that, yeah, like, I don't know. I can't think of any way I wanted this arc to go. There's sometimes where I get presuppositions in my mind of like, oh, this is clearly like the direction that would be more satisfying or something like that. And then maybe there'll be a turn of subversion or whatever. But for this arc, once Riddler was revealed to be the guy, like, I don't even know where I wanted it to go. It seems like we're just doing 0 Year Light. It seems like we're just doing, hey, Riddler's taking over the city again because, duh. But no, it's a fine issue. It's an okay storyline. I still feel like I'm waiting for the idea to drop. I'm still waiting for, like, the big thing. But I think the big thing was, it's Riddler. Which now leaves me to think, well, then what are we doing with that? Because all I have to imagine is, Pied Piper, if I had to guess, Pied Piper's going to use the rats to disable all the drones across the city at the same time. And then Flash is going to punch him in the face. And that's it. That's the storyline. The difference being is now Captain Fry knows his identity. To which point, they might kill Captain Fry. We'll see about that. But beyond all that, sure. 7? I don't feel that much of an attachment to it, but sure, 7. New Suicide Squad number 20, written by Tim Seeley, art by Juan Ferreyra. So last issue, we got a whole bunch of stuff with the Cult of Crime, Cult of Cain. I don't know what, a Fist of Cain. That sounds right. Got a whole bunch of stuff with them. The new Suicide Squad was all wrapped up in trying to stay alive in a sealed off castle that is trying to kill them. And this issue picks up with Deadshot just basically laying out the whole storyline up to this point, saying like, yeah, we've all been trapped in here because Harley tried to get us out of the thumb of Amanda Waller, but now we're in even worse dire straits. So Deadshot basically turns to Harley and says, I need a psychiatric breakdown on the people who would be part of this cult. Why would they join this in order to figure out how to beat them? And Harley says, well, you're going to have your run-of-the-mill serial killers, and then you're going to have mercenaries who are trying to make a name for themselves. And she points out that more than likely they're going to congregate the type 2 types at some point in order to show off their guns and knives and stuff. It'll probably be early in the morning, and Deadshot's like, cool, that's when we'll attack, when they're least expecting it. And Harley goes in with El Diablo and Cheetah on her side. They've got some serious firepower there. Apparently Harley's going in because Deadshot says, well, I'm one of those type 2 types, and Harley is deeply unsettling to me, so hopefully that'll carry over to the rest of them. We then also have the other mercenary who was part of the ones that rescued them, named Deathtrap. His power is he can make guns out of anything, and so he's like, yeah, I will run defense for anyone trying to sneak up behind you guys, and then Deadshot will be hidden off elsewhere for anyone who tries to sneak up on Deathtrap. So that's the plan, and they start going through it. And all in all, it lands out pretty well. Like, it's doing pretty decent for them. And then they say our ultimate goal is that we're going to get to Adam Reed, the guy who is currently holding the detonator on all of their neck bombs. And they're going to take it, and we're going to work as a team. And we're going to prove Amanda Waller right that we were able to work as a team. But screw her, then we're leaving. So we then see, I believe, one of the other mercenaries who shows up here, and she hears that, like, oh, the Suicide Squad and the mercenaries are converging at a point over a radio. And when she hears that, she's like, oh, they're still alive. Praise Satan. To which point a mysterious figure appears in the door and says, oh, you're praying to the wrong spirit. You're one of mine. And then there's a scream from inside. So we go to a plane flying over the Atlantic where Waller, Boomerang, and if you remember the hunky punk who is also there, they're all flying across, and Hunky Punk just makes some offhanded references of like, oh yeah, Waller, I can tell you like why you do all that you do, like you've got troubled backstory and you always felt like you were for something bigger, like maybe you thought you would even be a hero or all that sort of stuff. To which point he realizes, yeah, all of us thought we could have been a hero, like that's something that we all should have aimed for. And then Boomerang just chuckles and he's like, nah, you were never going to be a hero because deep down underneath it all, you think you're better than everyone else, and that's the difference. That's what makes all of us evil bastards. So we cut back to the castle. We see that Suicide Squad has done a fantastic job of wiping up Fist of Cain. And Diablo yells out, hey, Cheetah found the scent on that Adam Reed guy. He's nearby. Let's get going. However, turns out it's not on the Adam Reed guy. It's like, no. It's actually Adam's girlfriend, the one who was killed back like 2-3 issues ago. I smell her blood here. And as they look on the ground, they see that the blood has been shaped into a painting of a rose. And that's where we go back to Deathtrap, who's like, ah, crap. Do you remember that poem thing I sang a couple issues ago about the girl with the rose tattoo or whatever? It's the spirit of murder. It's real. And it's in this castle. And Deathshot's like, what are you talking about? It's like, there were so many murderers and bloodthirsty people here that I think we actually summoned the spirit of murder, in which case we're all screwed. We're all going to die because nothing can stop her. And Deadshot's like, okay, well, look, we just got to figure out how to get out of here. Everyone line up. We'll get into formation. And then all of a sudden a grenade lands in between them. He's like, never mind, split up, take cover. So Harley gets blasted into the next room over. We see there's a couple of Fist of Cain people. They're talking about getting points for killing her. And as she's about to be shot up, we see Hunky Punk, who again, his power is invulnerable skin, or at least to some extent. Maybe it's a suit. He's like, haha, don't worry, Harley, I've saved you. See, I am capable of being a hero. And he gets shot in the back of the head through his eye socket, and he's dead. Who's the one who shot him? Well, it looks like Seraphine, but it is the spirit of murder. And she recounts the same poem. She's like, oh, may you never find the girl named for the tattoo of a rose. So Deadshot's also under some rubble. He meets a Fist of Cain guy. Waller ends up saving him. And she's like, oh, Captain Boomerang's going to be so jealous that I'm the one who saved you. The tattoo murder lady, I'm just going to call her Rose. She's about to shoot Harley, saying like, oh, a savior of lives sacrificed so that I may walk among my devout today, talking about Seraphine. She's like, now you will receive my gift. And then Diablo comes in, makes a whole bunch of fire, and Cheetah leaps through and is just like, oh, you may be a spirit, but I'm a force of nature. So they start fighting with each other. And one of the last things we get is Waller is walking with Deadshot, helping him out. Deathtrap shows up and just like, oh, hey, yeah, like we're in this central cathedral area that sends refuge to Christian Fleischer, the guy who made the Fist of Cain. And Deathtrap reveals like, yeah, how did you get in here? We've been locked down. If you have a way out, let us know. And she's like, what are you talking about? It was easy to get in here. We landed on the roof and we just like got inside. And then Waller's light bulb goes off and she's like, oh, it was too easy. And she gets tased in the back. We see Adam Reed and a whole bunch of other Fist of Cain people are there, and he's just like, oh, it's so perfect that you're here, Deadshot and Deathtrap, because here's what's going to happen. I've got too many people, you guys are unarmed and half dead, so let's go ahead and just end this. And Deathtrap starts to make a gun, he aims it at Adam, and Adam's like, look, if you kill me, one of my guys is going to kill you. That's just how it's going to happen. But if you kill me now, you do it before I become the shepherd. You die taking out just some rich kid instead of the real scary thing. If you really want to cement your legacy as the all-time greatest, you know who you have to kill instead. And Deathtrap turns around and blows Deathshot in the head. So, yeah. Does it stick? Doubt it. I'm about 99% sure that Deadshot's still alive because, you know, he's got a movie coming up. I like bringing back the Rose thing. I thought that was just going to be a little flair, just a little thing of adding like some more lore or whatever. Bringing it as an actual spirit, I didn't see it coming. I appreciate that. As for the rest of it, it does just feel like one big fight scene. It doesn't really feel like we take our time to do anything else with anything. Deathtrap shooting off Deadshot's head, like, yeah. It's one of those things where because it's at the end of the book and because it's Deadshot, I don't trust it implicitly. And I know that for comics, you are supposed to just ignore that. Like the idea of like, oh, Batman's definitely dead this time, guys. Tune in next time. Like, of course, you have to just accept that that's the way the book plays out. But this one, I don't know. It somehow didn't feel set up enough for me to think that I should be worried about it. So, overall, it's still good. I like the art. And the dialogue itself is also solid. So I'll get it up to a 7. It doesn't feel like firmly footed there, but it definitely at least has 1 foot into it. So this still has several issues left to go before it ends. We'll see where we get there. But as for now, it's okay. Batman Beyond number 12, written by Dan Jurgens, art by Philip Tan. So, beginning of the new arc, which, you know, we're coming into Rebirth, so most of this arc is done after Rebirth has started, but we open up with a flashback to somewhere in the middle of Terry McGinnis's career, and Bruce is just super pissed off with him, telling him to get out of the cave, he needs to leave. Barbara's in there and she's like trying to calm him down or whatever, and Terry's just sitting at the back computer like, hey, what's up? Like, I've been Batman for a while now, it's been a few months, and I'm putting my own case files, my own guys, into the back computer. I thought this was like, you're the one who tells me to document my cases. And Bruce just turns off the computer, storms out, and is just like, worry about what's going on now, don't look at the old stuff. And he just storms off. But Barbara's there to explain, of just like, look, you don't understand everything Bruce went through with all that stuff. Like, he's still dealing with you coming into the role of Batman and all that extra stuff, but the big thing that set him off was on the computer, you brought up someone from the past. That's a big deal. And Barbara basically explains, like, he doesn't want anything to happen to you because we went through a bit of a loss in our own family. And he's like, oh, the Jason Todd thing. And she's like, what? No, Jason Todd came back from the dead. Like, yeah, he was around, but like, he's fine. He's good. Don't worry about it. No, the big one was the Tim Drake thing, because in this new rewritten reality, Tim, one day, he was off doing a mission with the Titans. He came back. He was like, hey, I need to rest. I'm going to be right back. And then he just disappeared. And Batman apparently took months and months away, just hanging out in the cave. He never came out and trying to solve Tim's case, and it just never worked. He never had any idea what happened to Tim. And so that has become this Bruce's greatest failure, is that Tim just disappeared. Then we cut to modern day, and of course, Tim just jumped through time. He's now the modern Batman Beyond. Barbara's there, and I will say this, I think, is a coloring issue. I think this is just a choice they made. Previous arc, Barbara was still pretty red-haired. It was fading. It wasn't saturated, but it was there. It was red. This, she is white as a ghost. And I think that's just a coloring issue. But regardless, there's apparently some alert going on at Star Labs. It looks like a little bit of time has passed since everything that happened in the last arc with like people storming in from Metropolis and all that. But, you know, they're still on the call. They're doing whatever. So we see Tim, I'm going to keep doing that. Tim dives down into Star Labs to go answer the alert, and we see Barbara is at the back computer. She's looking through the security cam footage, and it doesn't look good. There are a lot of people who are dead. So it's like, yeah, this is clearly someone who knows their stuff. This is a very tech-forward wing, so we got to be extra careful. And as she's looking on more security camera footage, she finds someone who is going after some new cyber techno batteries. And we get a look at the guy, and it turns out it's Rewire, who we saw at the end of the last arc. So Tim swoops in, punches Rewire in the face, and he's like, hey, I've been looking for you ever since that guy in the last arc. He ended up fried. He was a tailor, and seems like you murdered him. And Rewire's like, oh, well, you're accusing me? Where's your evidence of that? It's like, you were the last guy who was seen with him, and then he's dead, and he was fried. And he's like, well, that wasn't on me. So they start fighting each other. Barbara's given the lowdown in continuity of what his name is. David Dusk, Davis Dusk, he was a rich kid who got some portable gravity energy, blah, blah. His powers are tech-based, though, which means that Tim thinks, oh, well, I could just take out a suit, no problem. So he throws some batarangs at it. However, it seems that they don't affect Rewire. And so he throws him back at Tim and says, hey, if you're worried about that Taylor guy, the one that you thought was killed, he was dirty and he was still alive when I left him. And Tim's like, okay, if that's the case, you need to come in with me and you need to prove it to the commissioner. And Rewire's like, no, that's not going to happen. So the fight continues on. However, Rewire shocks the ground, which seems to do something to Tim's suit. It's unclear specifically what, but as Tim he's just stuck standing there, the entire suit is non-responsive, and Rewire comes in, starts throwing punches, and Tim's like, I can't do anything, I'm stuck. So Rewire hits him with another electric shock, sends Tim going over the edge of, somehow they ended up on a balcony, and starts going off the end. So Rewire kicks him, says shway, because of course it's the future, and Tim goes plummeting down into a lake, a river, something like that, and he's non-responsive. So we cut back up to the top of one of the buildings, and we see somebody, a shadowy figure, is talking to Rewire, saying, oh, well done, you took on the Batman and you won. And Rewire's like, I don't know exactly what happened, because he shouldn't have been, like, the suit should have been able to deal with that, but yeah, I stopped him. And the shadowy figure's like, all right, well, it doesn't matter, all that matters is we've done what we had to do in order to keep you alive. So what does that mean? Why did you need to break into Star Labs? I don't know. I'm sure we'll figure it out. Okay. One, I like the pivot in continuity where obviously when Batman Beyond began, I believe, if I'm getting my timeline right here, Jason Todd was still the dead Robin. So I appreciate the fact that they're switching it over. They're making it this thing of Tim Drake disappeared, because obviously in the context of modern Batman continuity, that's how it would be. Also in Batman Beyond continuity, there was the Return of the Joker movie, and that also involved Tim Drake. So, you know, it works on multiple fronts here. I already mentioned the coloring issue. I'm not going to harp on that too much. That's just its own thing, whatever it is. I think my biggest thing here is the fact that this book, I'm not going to say it felt like it was done, because it didn't feel like it was completed yet, but for any book that stretches past the end of the New 52 era and like goes into the next section for a little bit, I feel like it's always with this idea that, oh, we have to finish telling the story. We have this big thing that needs to happen and we need to get to that point. This, at least this issue, doesn't sell me on that. It feels like this is more of just a thing of, oh, well, we set up the Rewire cliffhanger at the end of last issue and we want to wrap that up. If it only went on for one more issue after this and then wrapped up, I say, yeah, okay, fine, whatever. You just wanted to reveal who Rewire is. But like, this trade goes on for another 4 or 5 issues, depending on how you count. So like, yeah, there's a while there. So it's not bad. It just feels like I'm hoping that they're going to do something interesting with it that gets it to the point where I feel like it deserved to have this little extra run going on here. Beyond that, 7. It's fine. It's okay. This is a coloring issues notwithstanding. It's perfectly fine issue. We'll see what comes out of it. Bloodlines number 2, written by J.T. Krul, art by V. Kenneth Marion. So last issue, we kind of just got a glimpse around this town, learned all the people's names, and then a kid named Graham got killed by a giant mutant space deer, and Eddie transformed into Blue Hulk in order to take him out. So this issue picks up. We get a little glimpse seeing the meteor descending from the sky, maybe like a week earlier, and a bunch of people around town all getting infected by whatever these little space virus probe things are. But the real issue starts when we go to the funeral for Graham, and we see Graham's parents are there, Eddie is there, and a bunch of like the jockish kids from school are there. And as Eddie's depressed because one of his only friends has been killed by this thing, all the jocks are looking at him like he's to blame. So after the funeral ends, they kind of jump him. They get him outside the church and they're like, how is it that Graham got killed but Eddie, the crippled kid, managed to escape? That doesn't make any sense. You must have been slowing him down. This is all your fault. And Eddie just goes running. He escapes, and he's like, oh yeah, look how fast he can run when he's scared. So Eddie ends up hiding behind a tree. We see he starts transforming. His hands turn blue, and he's like, no, stop it. And he manages to calm back down, and he's like, what in the hell's happening to me? We then cut over to Dana. Apparently they was off of school that day. She's the one who does all the vlogging. She's trying to do like some makeup tutorial video, and she's like, yeah, I'm not really in a good mood today. You know, someone died and all that. I think I should probably sign off. And as she goes to sign off, all of a sudden she starts electrifying. Her hair turns with blue electricity and the computer shorts out. We then go to a bar where the girl Haley is getting blown up on her phone by Blake, who's saying like, hey, you better talk to me, blah, blah, blah. Some guy at the bar starts hitting on her, asking to buy her a drink. She says no. He puts her hand on her shoulder, to which all of a sudden it grows into a massive spike that impales his hand. And his first response is, Jesus, lady, what kind of piercings are those? And she runs off because, of course, she doesn't know what's going on either. We then go to Blake. We see he's not getting any response from Haley. He gets a beer out of the fridge, and then all of a sudden, the beer catches on fire. Like the whole bottle just combusts. He throws it away, and it explodes slightly off kilter of where he was at. That's that. Then we cut over to Faith, and Faith was a little girl last issue who was just spoiled rotten. She was whining to her mom about stuff. We see that she's at a friend's birthday party, and they're about to have cupcakes, and Faith is like, pshaw, we should have had an ice cream sundae bar. That's cooler than cupcakes. And the mom is like, well, you can do that at your party, but this is your friend's party, so why don't you come over and get some cupcakes? And Faith looks over as everyone else is distracted at the big pile of presents, and she just goes over and starts unwrapping them. The friend's brother comes over and says, hey, you can't do that. Those belong to my sister. And she says, shut up, Bobby. I can do whatever I want. I'm going to play with your toys. And as they start struggling over one of the presents, this purple energy starts coming off of Faith. It starts erupting into what seems to be a giant beast shape. It's claws and horns and everything, grabs hold of Bobby and just tosses him around, then turns to the rest of the party. And to keep a long story short, it's a bloodbath. bath, everyone at the party is dead, and Faith is still just sitting there playing with the Easy Bake Oven. So, yeah. We then cut over to Eddie, who's lying awake in bed. Or maybe he's having a nightmare. I don't know. Regardless, he's plagued with visions of Graham and the giant mutant space deer until finally he shoots up in the middle of the night afraid and decides to go for a walk. And he heads out to this place where him and Graham used to hang out back before Eddie started, his illness. And they're talking about skateboarding down this hill that's like absolutely crazy. It's this whole huge thing. And Graham's like, oh yeah, the hill like that, if you try to take that down, it'll tell you what kind of person you really are. So Eddie does so. He grabs a skateboard and he leaves his crutches behind, starts going down the hill, and immediately he's losing control until eventually his wheel hits a rock. He starts tumbling. But before he's even done tumbling, he's fully transformed into that blue Hulk creature looking thing. And he's just like, all right, this is completely insane, but it's also completely real. So what's going on? And then we see the skateboard starts floating up behind him. And a speech bubble says, oh, actually, that's impossible. And we see Albert, the smart kid, is slowly like fading in and out of being visible, and he's like, if what your experience is real, then you also can't be insane. That's technically speaking. And he holds out the skateboard and says, hey Eddie, looks like we should talk. So then we go over to Blake, who I guess is the first cop on scene for the massacre at this birthday party. His partner's like, hey man, if this is too much, you can leave. Like, I no one is blaming you. This is insanity. He's like, no, I'm fine. It's good. Whatever. But as they're looking around, all of a sudden a voice comes up behind and says, hey, you may not be able to make sense of this, but I can. And they say, who the hell are you? And he looks like straight out of The Walking Dead. He says, my name is Duncan, and this here is a sign of the end of the world. So, what does that mean? Yeah. It's a slower paced book. I think I just need to get used to that. It's a very slow paced book. I don't know what the endpoint's going to be. It looks like they're setting Faith out to be the villain, or at least like a problem that has to be dealt with. But like, yeah, I really don't know what the endpoint of this book is going to look like. So kudos on that. It's not predictable at the very least. Beyond that, its art is good. Everything else is going fine there. It is just, yeah, for anyone who doesn't like a decompressed book, you're going to hate this. You're going to absolutely despise this. It is even slow for me, and I consider myself to be a fan of decompressed books. So, yeah, I'd say this is a 7 or 7.5. I'll just say the 7. I think it still needs to earn it a little bit for me, but it's on the right track. It's definitely getting up there if it can just keep delivering a little bit more of interesting items like this. Midnighter number 12, written by Steve Orlando, art by Aiko and Hugo Petrus. So last issue left off with Apollo and Midnighter showing up to fight against Henry Bendix and the Unified, along with maybe Amanda Waller and her squad. And this issue also shows that Spiral ended up joining them and showing up behind them. So yeah, immediately Medora is on fire, as it previously was. The Unified's just causing mass chaos and all that sort of stuff. Apollo is jumping into the fight along with Midnighter, going crazy, and Midnighter's like, well, all right, we need to figure out where Unified is, so here's the plan. We then cut over to Waller, who's talking to Henry Bendix, watching the Unified just kill everybody, and she is horrified. She's saying, hey, this wasn't the plan. The plan was to, like, show a little bit of strength here, but, like, you have him attacking civilians. That's a no-go. And Bendix is like, you stupid bastard. No, this is exactly what it is. The extremists here in Medora attacked American modern citizens, like the ones who came for free speech and seeked asylum and all that. Of course we're attacking the civilians because we need to make an example of this country. We need to show them that we are the unquestionable authority. And he just says a whole bunch of stuff about, like, strength ruling through all that sort of stuff. So throughout the fights, we see Midnighters fighting the Suicide Squad, a bunch of Madoran guards are trying to take down the squad as well. Unified's also causing mass chaos. It's crazy. And right in the middle of Bendix's speech, we just get a crack sound effect. God knows what that was, but Bendix is on the ground and Waller is calling into the squad saying, okay, I made a bad call. So now the Suicide Squad is against the Unified and you are teaming up with Spiral and Midnighter. Cool. However, one of the people who was hired on in the middle of all this was Multiplex. And Multiplex has a grudge against Midnighter. And he tells Waller, bad news, I don't care if I'm supposed to be on the side of Midnighter. I'm going to keep on trying to kick his ass. So we've got like 7 different sides of this fight at this point, but it's pretty much at this point everyone against Unified, and then also Multiplex is causing chaos. So the fight continues on. Unified crashes down in the middle of a bunch of civilians and again just spouts the fascist stuff. He's just like, oh, you're trash, you can't police yourself, this is the natural endpoint of that. And Apollo comes up, seemingly like snaps his neck. Clearly it doesn't actually be that, but he's doing something to his neck, and then just hurls him up into the sky, where they start doing like a Superman Zod fight. Down on the ground, we have a police officer who is about to shoot a civilian who was just running away, criticizing him for not joining in the fight and protecting their country, to which Midnighter's like, yeah, that's a no-go for me, dog. Takes her gun and is like, all right, that's enough. You go off and fight if you want to, like, only let the people who have to fight do this stuff. Bendix, I guess, wakes up and tases Waller and says, all right, well, you shouldn't have questioned me. You backed the wrong side, all this stuff. She kicks him in the face, to which he promptly opens a door and is just like, we'll meet again. So, again, Unified still in play. We see that Apollo and him are just going blow for blow as best they can. Unified is taunting Apollo, saying, yeah, not only do I have pretty much all of your abilities, I'm just as strong as you are, but I also have an upgraded fight computer compared to what Midnighter has. So you have no chance to beat me, and all of these people are going to die for sure, or whatever. Apollo then uses his abilities to straight up take him out. He's like, look, your abilities only work if you've been in the sun. You're like 30 minutes old. You haven't had enough time to be fully charged up in the sun, so I'm going to be able to kick your ass. And if there's one thing you should know, like, there's no way you're going to be able to take down Midnighter. So then we get over to Midnighter. He's joining the fight as Unified was thrown to the ground. He's managed to commandeer some sort of sonic gun thing, and he's like, yeah, you might have invulnerable skin, but I bypass the safety on this gun and it can pop your head like a balloon, so I'm just gonna go ahead and do that. And then he chimes in saying, you think you're better than Apollo and Midnighter, you think you're gonna beat us? Well, nothing's better than the originals. So a long fight happens, they're blasting each other around. Midnighter does get tossed around significantly here, and as he's landing back on the ground, Unified's hovering over top of him. He's like, oh, Bendix removed my ability to feel any sort of empathy. It's not that I feel anything when I kill other people. It's just on-the-job training. And I don't want to change that. I like the way I am. And as he's taunting and as he's getting right up, he's like, I have X-ray vision. I can see the ray gun under your jacket. And Midnighter's like, yep. Well, you shouldn't have blinked. And he already has the sonic gun out. He pops the Unified's head like a balloon. And Apollo comes in, because he's been pretty hurt through all this fight. Apollo comes in and is just like, hey, man, you just missed it. Best work of my life. So they fly down to some of the Madoran community. They look over all the damage and all that. Midnighter walks through saying, hey, yeah, Spiral will take care of it. I know they wanted the Unified to look into it, but like at least they got his body or whatever. And Helena, who's there for Spiral, is like, well, yeah, we're dealing with Multiplex. Don't worry about it. Everything's fine. She reaches out to shake Midnighter's hand, saying that we couldn't have done it without you. And he's like, yeah, I know. And then we get to all the epilogue stuff. So Midnighter goes up to the God Garden, goes to talk to the gardener, and she's basically like, oh, you know, you're running around playing all these games or whatever. You hate me so much, but we are still family. So why don't you come and do some real work for me? And he's like, look, I'm only here as a courtesy to tell you that Bendix is back in town. He might be coming for you, but if you ever come into my life again and ever question my choices, I will kill you myself. We then go to Boston, where Midnighters let himself into that guy who was doing the documentary on him, and he's saying like, oh yeah, I'm here, you got a documentary to do, let's do it. And the guy asked questions about all the stuff that we've covered over the course of the book, and Midnighters like, yep, all right, I'm ready. So then we go to Detroit. We see Midnighters talking to Amanda Waller, and Waller's like, look, I was wrong about Bendix, sorry about that, but like, I don't have any beef with you. Like, I appreciate the fact that someone like you is out there. I'd like you to be used for us, but like, you're better than Spiral. To which Midnighter's like, oh yeah, by the way, Spiral has your afterthought guy, the one who can see the future and all that, and they're reverse engineering him to make a better one as we speak. So that's what all that is. But no, they just have a little clink on their glass, and they have some mutual respect towards each other. We then go back to Boston, and we see there's a whole party of people coming out for Midnighter. Glad to have him back. And they all are basically just saying like, oh yeah, you should have had me along for the fight. I would have done something. It's like, yeah, no, you would have made a good cudgel. Until finally someone comments, also, cool that Apollo was back. It's nice that you have your main man back again. And Midnighter's like, whoa, who said that he's my man? And we cut to Opalsley the next morning. They are getting into their costumes, and Midnighter's talking to Apollo and saying like, hey, look, I need to say this. If it weren't for you, I'd be dead right now. I'm working with you, being on your side. Everything about it just felt right. I know I've made mistakes. I can't change anything I've done. If that's too much for you, if you want to tell me to move on, I absolutely will. And then Apollo just cuts him off, kisses him right there. And he's like, look, that is what you deserve. You need to stop listening to the fight computer in your head and trust me on some stuff here. And Midnighter's like, yep, yeah, sure. And he opens up a door and says, I don't know how this is going to end, but you know what? I got a lot of work to do. And cut to a splash page of him beating up a bunch more bad guys. The end. It's not a bad issue. It's not like... I don't feel like it's done as much as previous arcs. The whole thing with like Prometheus and all that other stuff, I feel like that led up to a lot of a bigger punch, a bigger interest point. This one felt more like, oh, okay, I guess we need to wrap this up. And so we have to devote half the issue to epilogue stuff, which is fine. It's moving the pieces back where they should be. Like, I'm not opposed to it. And there's been growth for Midnighter, obviously, but I don't know. Something about the Unified being taken out so relatively easy after hyping them up so much felt a little bit weak. And then the multiplex stuff, like, yes, they did that, but it felt more so from the viewpoint of, oh, well, if the squad is on Spiral's side, and the Bedorans are on Midnighter's side, and everyone's on each other's side except for the Unified, how do we justify the ground troops being wrapped up? And so then they're like, oh, multiplex is here. It's like, sure, I guess. Beyond that, it's still a competent issue. I criticize because I love. So I'd still say a 7. I'd still say it's good, not quite great territory, but for this series, I think that the first arc was probably the better one. Out of the two halves of it, I think I enjoyed the first half just a little bit more. That's not to say there wasn't anything enjoyable in the back half. It just happened to be front-loaded. So that's Midnighter. And that's it. That is all the comics that were published by DC Comics this May 4th, 2016. May 4th. May the 4th. I feel like there's a reference I'm supposed to make in nerd circles regarding May the 4th. Huh. Nope. I guess it'll come to me. Speaking of things that'll come to me, I completely forgot to mention at the beginning of this episode as I was just barfing up words. If you somehow miraculously watch my show, but not the main Comics from the Multiverse comics show that comes out the day before mine each week, do that. Do that for at least specifically this week, because we had a 10th anniversary special that lasted 4 hours and 45 minutes, where yours truly got to sit in the corner and occasionally smile and nod. That's right. I had to do that. I'm so lucky to be a part of this community. Anyway, all that's basically happening. Don't really have anything else to say. So if you have anything you'd like to say, whether it's about this week's comics, last week's comics, anything like that, you can go ahead and put them down in the comment section down beneath this video, or you can find us in numerous other locations like a Discord or a subreddit or a Patreon. I'll never give you the names, but you can find them if you're a lucky little boy or girl and you're able to follow the clues like a Nancy Drew. Or possibly just look down in the description. I think I might have it there as well. But that's going to do it for me. Thank you very much for watching, listening, however it is consumed this podcast. Be sure to tune in next week and interact with it positively because my feelings get hurt every time you don't. I know that you talk smack about me behind my back. I know. And always try to remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.